China's Belt and Road Initiative turns 5 this fall. As the projects progress, other economies are proposing their own connectivity systems. Will these systems complement each other, compete or clash? And China-Sri Lanka cooperation keeps growing. Earlier, I sat down with the ambassador of Sri Lanka to China to discuss how the two countries can unlock more opportunities to collaborate. Welcome to The Point. From Beijing, I'm Liu Xin. China's Belt and Road Initiative marks its 5-year milestone this autumn. Proposed by China in 2013, the initiative aims to improve physical, economic and cultural connectivity between China and countries along the ancient trade routes of the Silk Road, on land and at sea and beyond. The initiative is seen as the most ambitious project ever undertaken by China. Chinese President Xi Jinping said earlier in August that China's trade with countries under this initiative had exceeded $5 trillion and Chinese direct investment surpassed $60 billion. But big ideas come with big questions. As the Belt and Road grows, so do questions and controversies surrounding how countries will pay back their debts, China's influence in these countries and benefits to local communities. Where are we on the Belt and Road trajectory? What needs to improve in the coming years? And as Europe announces its own Asia connectivity strategy, will the two visions complement each other or clash? Joining me for the discussion in the Beijing studio are Hao Xuantao, Senior Council Member at the think tank Center for China and Globalization, and Ahmad Zafar Khan, Chairman of Pele App Limited, a company dedicated to promoting the exports of Pakistan's agricultural products. Mr. Khan, what is the impact, you think, on Pakistan by this Belt and Road Initiative so far?
First of all, I think what has changed sitting in Pakistan is the complexion of our own population. We're now mixing and mingling more with Chinese that have come and settled down there and are in businesses, etc. And we see more Chinese restaurants opening, etc. So on the social front, there is greater interaction taking place between the two countries. On the economic front, I think there's a mixed view on that. But I don't just point it to the initiative itself. It's a form of intervention, but it's an intervention that's taking place on a canvas which is in a certain form. This canvas of Pakistan as an economy is actually heavily import dependent. So our imports are double our exports. That in itself was a challenge that the country faced when the intervention happened. The intervention at Pakistan's leadership concentrated on projects that were of an infrastructure nature. Those benefits of roads, power stations, etc. will take a while to show their benefit.
Right. During a very recent visit to your country by the Chinese State Councillor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi, he stressed that China is committed to working with Pakistan on the trade imbalance, exactly the situation that you alluded to. How do you see the Belt and Road Initiative having a potential to address the developmental needs of Pakistan, of addressing the trade imbalance, as you mentioned?
As a nation, we have been very inwardly focused over all these years. So this One Belt, One Road is certainly going to help to open our minds to neighbors and partners that we need to involve and make ourselves relevant to. And an intervention is certainly necessary to hold the hands of our business community, which is quite a mature one. It's had industrialization for probably longer than China. Since the 40s, it's been developing it. Its only greatest challenge has been it's been underscaled and myopically focused on the country. China, if it can hold our hand and show us how to make it an export-orientated, large-scale activity, will certainly help connect Pakistan back and put it on the And why China makes a good partner is because China at $2.3 trillion, I believe, is the largest exporter in the world, aside from being a big consumer itself. So we need a partner that's tread the road of multiple countries to show us how it's done. We've had a very narrow focus of textiles and a few other things.
Okay. Mr. Tang, during your past few years under the Belt and Road Initiative, you advocated going global for your enterprise, for your entity. Right now we're seeing a backlash against globalism. Countries are more and more talking about patriotism. What do you think is the vitality of globalism at this moment?
I think, globalization, I think, is the way. Why? I have visited many countries. I talk with many people. People like share with other people, like share with other country. So, for example, when I went to Kazakhstan, people happy. Why? In the past year, they export more product to China. Same situation in Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan. Many product before cannot export to China, now become increase every month.
Has it been made possible with the Belt and Road Initiative?
Right.
What kind of specific, can you elaborate on that so that our friend from Pakistan can get more confidence in this initiative?
The first way to be like people communication, First, for example, we go there first time last July. First time when I went to Tashkent, Uzbekistan. I found that many opportunity, good policy, good environmental. So I make a decision to set up a company there. So a few months later, everything ready. We have companies there, we have groups there. Now everything go on day by day.
Is it so easy for the agricultural imports from Pakistan, you think, Mr. Tang?
I think also there's opportunity. I suggest you to invite some Chinese group to go there first. Start there 1 week or 10 days, but it's necessary.
Okay, Mr. Tang, Mr. Han, you have been trying to bring Pakistani agricultural exports to China. What have you found difficult, and do you see hope within the initiative that can be useful?
I think this is my second trip here. And both were prospecting trips to try and find large Chinese sourcing companies that would be willing to come and attempt to source and export from Pakistan. We have a very large production base, but it is not productive. And yet we are self-sufficient in food. So if more technology and modern methods were used and right cropping approaches were used, there can be a phenomenal surplus, enough to feed another 200 million people, which is what we are at this point. These are significant numbers. However, I'll be candid, my first round of meetings were with the chambers, and generally there was not, I don't think they're connected within that one belt, one road ethos at this point in time. And as a result, this is slightly developmental work. This is not an area that they seem particularly interested in. That's what the leadership of these agricultural chambers indicated, that their members are unlikely to be interested in. But I would like to pursue it further because I found 2 or 3 fairly large Chinese companies doing it in some other countries. And I thought I was making headway with one of them. It's early days to see how that will go.
So even if with a very significant initiative to promote trade and business cooperation between China and other countries, the business have to have the merit on its own. After all, it's business we are talking about. So how do you look at the kind of criticism and controversy coming out of Pakistan? We know people are talking about during the negotiation between China and Pakistan over the CPEC projects that Chinese companies were given favorable terms, and later on the relevant person had to come out and clarify that such statement were taken out of context. How do you look at this kind of noise in the media?
Well, I think they were investments directed at Pakistan, and presumably the investors felt securer working with Chinese management, Chinese materials, Chinese plant, and so forth to deliver more or less on time, that does have the effect of not giving the domestic equivalent groups a chance to also to learn and to
benefit.
do it. And so that perhaps has happened. However, there is undeniably a need for technical talent and technical input coming from the Chinese side, because the growth of China and its transformation in 20-25 years is unsurpassed by any other country. So there is a great amount that we can learn, but I think maybe a little more management from within Pakistan, a little greater dependence on resources from the country itself, as far as the import-oriented projects are concerned.
I see. Mr. Tang, how do you look at this kind of concern or questions? Is it unique to Pakistan, or have we heard from other countries similar grievances, maybe?
I think it's understandable, because the cultural background is different. The economic situation is different. So there is not the same sound for everything, not only in business, also in other things. So that's have a different opinion. I think it's understandable. It's acceptable.
Is China taking these opinions into consideration? For instance, for your company, when you're, in 5 years' time, you must have done a lot of soul searching, a lot of trial and error. What is the process on your side?
When we make some problem, I think negotiation is very important. It's necessary. We should be open, frankly. We must face problem. We not escape.
No, I mentioned earlier in the show that some other economies are also coming up with similar connectivity projects. For instance, we were talking about the EU members. They were expected to sign off on a new Asia connectivity strategy, which aims to improve transport, digital and energy links, while promoting environmental and labor standards in time for a major summit of the European and Asian leaders. Mr. Tang, how do you think of this kind of initiative coming up? We also have a very similar initiative announcement by the United States.
The EU is advanced countries. China is developing countries. So they have their advantage. We have our priority. For example, for this developed country, they are good in standard formulation. Also some good in consultation. Especially on big project. For China, we have built many highway, we have built many power stations, so we have many experience on this part. So we can cooperate on the one belt, one road, But different, we can composition, not the competition.
So you think if a European project is extending a similar hand to Pakistan, and an American project is also offering similar opportunity, what would Pakistan do?
Well, Pakistan has had a history of assistance coming from those countries as well, historically. China is a more recent entrant into this. So I would say where we find ourselves today is a function of most investment being directed towards providing Pakistan with comforts, whereas we, like an elder brother, need to be told that it's not time for comforts, you need to earn more to earn the comforts. And that's where the export strategy becomes important. As Mr. Tang said, there's more than one types of approaches to different countries, depending on where it is in the economic evolution. Europe and Abu Dhabi and other countries are more evolved, have surpluses. Pakistan is a deficit country, so it needs a wallet building effort. And that in the long term will pay both ways. It will create markets for Chinese products later, but there needs to be a wallet building exercise through exports.
Okay, we have to leave it there. Many thanks to my two guests, Mr. Hao Xuantang, Senior Council Member at the think tank Center for China and Globalization, and Ahmad Zafar Khan, Chairman of Pele Ab Limited, a company dedicated to promoting the exports of Pakistan's agricultural products to China. You have been watching The Point with me, Liu Xin. We'll take a short break, and when I come back, I will show you my exclusive interview with the Ambassador of Sri Lanka to China, and we talked about trade, infrastructure, and how the two countries can further cooperate. Stay with me. China and Sri Lanka have enjoyed a great strategic partnership of cooperation, and Sri Lanka was an important early participant of China's Belt and Road Initiative. Among all the cooperations, Sri Lanka's southern port of Hambantota, a joint venture led by China Merchants Port Holdings and the Sri Lanka Ports Authority, opened in 2010 to great fanfare, but also controversy, especially after Sri Lanka handed over control of the port to a Chinese company on a 99-year lease in December last year. So what's behind the handover? What are the implications of this 99-year lease, and how will the future relationship between China and Sri Lanka develop? I'm pleased and honored to be joined in the studio by His Excellency Karuna Sena Kadituwaku, the Ambassador of Sri Lanka to China. Mr. Ambassador, thank you very much. Why would that famous report that everybody is talking about of New York Times said that feasibility studies point to the opposite, that it doesn't make sense to build the port here? Do you understand?
Because when the media report these things, sometimes they would depend on their own sources for information. But in fact, this study was done during between 2001 and 2004. In that government, I was a cabinet minister. I am fully aware that this was recommended by this feasibility study. So, of course, what happened with the completion of the port, necessary industrialization in the region were not taken place. So, not enough businesses came into the port. Because of that, there was a difficulty of paying back the money. Of course, as a whole, Sri Lanka Port Authority was able to pay back. We have not defaulted any installment of this loan. But it was money earned in Colombo used to pay back of this construction cost of Hambantota.
Okay.
So when you start some port or any other business, you can't expect to get the profit initially.
Right.
It will take time to settle down.
Yeah, and you know, a business is a business. Sometimes business is good, sometimes the business is not so good. So that is also understandable. But I also understand you went to Indian investors for investment in the first place, not the Chinese. And this is also, let's remind our readers that it's before the Belt and Road Initiative was announced, right? So what was the idea there?
Of course, I do not have much records about this matter, because it was the explanation given by the former president when he sought Indian assistance first, but then they told it's not possible. That is why he came to China. But before that, as I am 100% aware, the first country which came forward to do BOT basis port development in Hambantota was Canadians.
But it didn't fall through.
No, what happened with in Sri Lanka, unfortunately, the continuity of work in our part of the world is difficult, because with the change of government, many things are changing. With the defeat of the then government, which was working with the Canadians, that government was defeated in 2004. Then Mrs. Kumaratunga, President Rajapaksa's predecessor, then she went and asked a Danish firm, firm from Denmark, to do a feasibility study. But with her retirement, then President Rajapaksa, according to him, he has asked Indians to support. When Indians has declined, he has asked the support of the Chinese government. Of course, as a friendly country, Chinese government has come forward to assist Sri Lanka.
Yeah. Well, some people are saying this heinous word term, debt trap, you know, saying China is on purpose lending to developing countries to a degree that they will not be able to sustain, to pay back. But China is doing that on purpose, because that's why it's a trap. Because if you do not pay me back, then you give me part of the property, you give me the equity, or you do what I say. Is that the case here?
No, I do not again agree with that, of course. So we have to put in these things a correct perspective. What happened when Chinese government gave that money, and with the first change of government, before that, even before that, there were not enough businesses, because it's the beginning. Just start the stage 1, then come to stage 2. They diverted some of the businesses from Colombo to Hambantota, but it was not sufficient. If anybody is saying that Chinese government gave this money to put Sri Lanka into the debt trap, I do not agree that. It's absolutely wrong conclusion. If anybody say, of course we had difficulties of paying back, that we don't want to deny it. So if we are in a debt trap, we have gone ourselves into a debt trap. But I must say that Chinese government assisted government of Sri Lanka to build this project, not only this project, number of projects. It is up to the government of Sri Lanka to build on the basis of feasibility studies, then to make business decision. Chinese government never asked to hand over the port to Chinese government or any Chinese venture. It is proposal came from Sri Lanka, asking partnership from China, because it's a Chinese money which we have used.
Yeah, but why, how come the Chinese investors are making a decision to put more money in a project that is not making profits? Does it make sense in your eyes? What is the consideration on the Chinese side that you...
No, of course, business decision taken not only on the basis of the return of investment at present. They will look at the long-term prospect. Now, Asia is becoming the most important part of the world in the global development. Now, China has become the second largest economy. Already India has become the sixth largest economy in the world. Indian economy is growing the fastest growing economy. So South Asia and even Bangladesh, Pakistan, even Sri Lanka, even adjoining Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Malaysia, it's a growing, well, even East Africa now, see the way Africa is changing. So Indian Ocean is a center for Southeast Asia, South Asia, East Africa,
right.
Middle East. So future potential in Sri Lanka being the center of in Indian Ocean is huge.
Okay, some people are saying, okay, that's exactly why China is giving whatever it takes to to gain an influence, to set its foot in this thing, with the ultimate goal of control, of using this port as a military station possibly, and with intelligence sharing, you know, forced upon the Sri Lankan side. What do you say to that? That's along your
because
logic.
I think this suspicion came because of Chinese naval base in Djibouti. But in Sri Lanka's case, from the very beginning, we have very clearly indicated to Chinese side, it's only economic venture. We will not allow anybody, not only China, any other country to come to Sri Lanka and interfere or to work with on defense matters. Of course, we have friendly exercise of militaries. We send our armed forces to various countries for the training, including China. But still, our sovereignty and the protection of our territorial integrity is a matter for government of Sri Lanka. In fact, we had a naval base in southern province, little away from Hambantota. With the Hambantota became operational under Chinese management, we shifted our naval base into Hambantota, because the security of the port of Hambantota, security of territorial coverage of Sri Lanka in Indian Ocean is entirely a matter for Sri Lankan security forces. China never asked us. We have never offered it. So people, and other thing we know in present day thing, particularly Indian Ocean has become so important in global trade. It has to be a very peaceful ocean for everybody to work together. Therefore, we have our obligation to our region, our neighbors. So we know our obligation, our role to play. Therefore, that is why very clearly we mentioned at the very beginning, there won't be any security matters to be given to anybody, any investor.
How do you understand, however, this higher level of concerns on the part of some Indian people in the military, in the press or in the academia, who are saying, look, Sri Lanka is moving closer to China, at least on the economic sense, that is not a good thing for us. How do you counter that?
Again, I have to say it is true we are moving very close to China, because China has become the second biggest trading partner. China has now emerged as the biggest foreign investor in Sri Lanka. China has become the second most important source for tourism. But when you think about, you mentioned Indian press, I don't think Indian political leadership has mentioned anything on this matter. But if academia or journalists are concerned, then India also same way we are very important for Sri Lanka. Our biggest trading partner is India. Our biggest source of tourism, tourists coming from India.
So I want to ask you this question. I know more and more Chinese are going to Sri Lanka, especially to have their wedding photos taken, which is a very good destination. I personally have been to Sri Lanka, and I see that the Sri Lankan people are very friendly to me as Chinese and to Indians as neighbors. So is Sri Lanka big enough for the two biggest developing countries in the world to come and, you know, exist side by side peacefully and happily?
In fact, even during the historical maritime Silk Road, even the book written in 6th century has made the use emporium with regard to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka was the transshipment center even at that time. Even for Chinese investors who would go to Sri Lanka, or Chinese industrialists who are based in China or any other country. Similarly, Indian industrialists who are based in India or based in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka they can use as a market, center of market, because Sri Lanka being the hub, aviation hub of South Asia. So Sri Lanka will become a very important trading spot. In fact, there's other Colombo Port, adjoining the Colombo Port. Now this international financial city under construction, again it's a huge Chinese investment, total investment will become 15 billion US dollars. So when it's completed, most of the South Asian financial headquarters will come to Sri Lanka. And not only that, even other businesses will move into Colombo. So Colombo, Sri Lanka being, though we have a small country, when you think about the huge territory of China or India or Russia, we have only 65,000 square kilometers, but still that 65,000 square kilometers are sufficient enough for Indians and Chinese businessmen to use as their platform.
Thank you very much. His Excellency Karuna Sena Kodi Tuwaku, the Ambassador of Sri Lanka to China. And that's all for this edition of The Point with me, Liu Xin. As always, you can follow me on Facebook and Twitter using the handle The Point with LX. Download the application called CGTN to watch the show on your mobile devices, or go to YouTube and look for CGTN The Point. Thanks for watching. You've got The Point.